You know, for the last many months I have been leading you through the book of Thessalonians.
Achi sa phat chom khana ke panen Thessalonica bu sunga kunin ihum kihil tawin.
Today we have come to chapter 4.
Tunia is chapter 4 na argument sa diwali.
Thessalonian believers were very new believers compared to us.
Thessalonian ta san Christian job ho chu iho sanga tha set ta san na tha nei hinalayo hi.
Most of them were at least a year old Christians.
Am ho so tam zo kum khat ba alo kum khat hinai lo Christian ngan hi bin hi.
Very few of them could be longer than that.
Am ho la chun them khat chu ji sang chun sok na bin tin ta san Christian ta san ho hi now.
Yet the level of maturity that they demonstrate is far beyond what we have been in our lifetime.
Ai la am ho Christian hi na wa apilin na pao hi iho so ta Christian hong hi sanga avela moi pilin zo hi.
So Bible demands a high standard of Christian living for us.
Bible in Christian khat hi na ang Bible thu zu ya sang ta pathin thu tu kito a hen ko iman diu chu adai.
If the 1-year-old Christians in Thessalonica were defined by faith, love and hope,
kum khat ham khat ba Christian ta san hin nei Thessalonica mi ho chu ngai lut na ta san na dim se na wa au mo wa hele.
how much more we should be also defined by those things.
Ai ho mo sanga ta san na phat sot zo ta chu ichana I mo sanga I hat zo ngai ham ti chu ge lo te.
And today, let us see in chapter 4, Paul is asking to live a life that is pleasing to God.
Tuni in this li na asay Paul pathin itabanga pathin lung hlei na itabanga kiman cha ngai ham ti asay no he ga ve te.
Is your life pleasing to God?
Nain ko ma he pathin lung hlei na hinam.
When you look into the mirror, do you like yourself?
Lim langani ki bating nam ma le dang ma mel he na ki lung hlei hinam.
If you meet Jesus on the way, what will he say to you?
Jesus Christ ilam pia ke muto pi hitala so ipinasay dam he nga.
Will you recognize Jesus?
Jesus Christ hi na hedam.
Will Jesus recognize you?
Jesus Christ nang na hedam. Timutuhan la so.
Ask these questions.
Si ho he kito ngai he.
So are you living to please God or please yourself?
Ya so Jesus Christ lung thai sa dinga na hi elu nang ma lung thai na zo a hin ko mang na hi.
Let us read chapter 4 verse 1 to 12 today in 1 Thessalonians.
Listen 1 Thessalonians bung di chang ana pa som la ni he simo bitin.
Paul says, as for other matters, brothers and sisters, we instructed you how to live in order to please God.
Verse khalani na asay hi Paulin so pidai ta te ho ke ho en pathin lung thai sa na dinga iti hin khu naman ngayam ta kan hil cha naw chu.
Paul was with the Thessalonians only for a few weeks.
Thessalonica mi te la ai Paul he hatta phat tham cha khat bau om khom pi hi.
Within that period of time, Paul had taught them so many things.
Iti cham cha khat om pi sunga yong chu Paul hin thil tam pi sai do pi hi.
And now he is reminding them.
Ya chu tua hi Paul hin he cha na sai ho chu ale kha that na he
And he is confirming that they are living to please God.
Ya so hisa say na ahin kathuhil bangin no ho Jesu pathin lung hai sa na dingin hin ko na mga weti kamoy ka ti.
Even though they are living to please God,
ay la pathin lung hai sa na dingahin ko aman ba wa chu
he wants them to do it more and more.
Paul hin Thessalonican mi te chu hi sang ma chu phai zo la ha zo la pha zo a chon dingo pathin lung ho diu chu a dei zo hi.
So we can see from this that we will always be able to do better than what we are doing right now.
Isin agat sa chu tu a ibor thayo pathena dinga sanga he esi sanga thu pi jo lahai jo pathena ibor thai na lai o hiti kimudo thai ne hi
We can always be better believers than what we have been so far.
yes
We can always be better than what we have been so far.
tu chana hi now itabang hi yu sanga chu hoi jo le machal jo din muna yum thayo hi
So the bottom line is, let us continue to live in a way that pleases God.
hi sun tu na chang sa bi chu pathian lung thai thai na ding din mun le hin ko chu imanonga hi ti chahi
How can we live to please God?
pathian lung thai sa na dinga chu iputi hin ko imanonga ha
In this short passage, Paul gives us 3 steps to live in such a way that we please God.
Heci tu changa ko hin polin at tu sai na hin thum tabang Jesu pathian lung thai sa na thai dim akim mun he
Let us read verse 3 to 7.
Isun wal 3 le 7 ki kai ga simotin
If we want to live to please God,
pathian lung thai na dinga hin ko na man no ma hele
we must maintain holiness in our marriage.
no pa ki chen na hin ko a thian thau na thian hin ko angai nei
In other words, we must be sexually pure, holy people.
alang khana hil chit ding chung hu le jon chung changa hi kidar se a thian hin ko man de ti chahi
Paul is giving this instruction in the context of the Roman sexuality.
polin hi cha sai na hi ji phat la ya rom te chi hu le jon hen ko aman now vet cha poma hi le hi Roman kan mi te
Roman society was sexually very perverse.
chi la ya chu Roman te society chu hu le jon langa asana sangau ki da am ta society hi
Prostitution was an accepted form of society.
ta chu naughty kiti hoyong chu Roman society a chu anaki phala ta chu thang de do no mo he
And marriage was not so holy.
ji a chu kitchen ne kiti pa jong hi Roman society a chu anathing be se lo he
So sexually it was a very immoral society in which the believers were living.
he a chu chi kitchen le no me le posal thwa sai de nga chu Roman society chu thin hin ko anaman lo
Let us read verse 3. It is God's will that you should be sanctified, that you should avoid sexual immorality.
pathinin adei chahi le thin hin ko naman ding so le hu le jona ko na nakiven do ding hi ti hi pathin de
Verse 4, that each of you should learn to control your own body in a way that is holy and honorable.
nata sa thin le jana za aum banga he nata sa nang ma jong nakiti manga ye
In some other translation, it says, you must have your own husband and wife.
Translation dang phal khana chun nang maji che bo hatta na nei ring hita sai ne wa me nei
Don't become like the pagans who go everywhere to satisfy their sexual lust.
pathin ta san lo ho pagan ho banga hoi lai mon hyong la mo che aji lo ta lo hin ko chup
And you should not do any wrong or take advantage of a brother or sister.
so so pi ho jong hi ho thu do la hi khap tha lo ding ai lo wa thu sai lo ding hi
In other words, what he is telling is, do not take advantage of your brother or sister sexually. Don't abuse them.
lang hana sai dinga chu so pi no me hanang posal hayong le sexually
Sexual abuse, exploitation.
Haji a chu among su chan vai lo ding o sa lo ding helang jo a chu ki thu pi a ven do ding hoi do ding ti ahi
A society's morality is measured by how they treat men and women.
a chu society khat chu itabang ham ti het na dinga chu numei le pusal iti kitri nem iti jana ke pi amalul jana za lo ne ti ke pi ti chai ke po do ji.
In the Roman society, they could take advantage of any weak person or weak family members. In a Roman society, the weaker would be exploited by the stronger.
Roman society achu hichi chu hilowin atha ha hoi anga sam ho ana su kan the athu thwa na bol he.
A slave woman had no dignity. Anybody could exploit her.
Roman society achu so mi so apang slave group holoi chun I macha thanai na nei lo mi thu thwa no me.
Roman society was so fallen. Within the family there was sexual immorality.
The Roman society achu ha sam dan chu family jo si ajong heta chu bulazon langa vadde amo he jingokte.
So what Paul is telling, if you want to live in order to please God,
he achu Paul pathin lung hai sa na dinga henga te na ti a hele
be holy in your sexuality.
che hulazon numela pusal ke ka he thin na hin ko na mananga ye.
And in other words, get married in time.
Alang khana he chiga hel chin na dinga chu aphat cha engineer.
And once you marry, stay faithful to your wife and husband.
Phat cha na je jine jo te le na ji chi a ding chu kita ta en ta sanum ta umin.
And do not abuse the weak women in your family.
Na in sunga no me hi han la hui la he yong le has no me hi je in anu me hi na in sugan thai ki eng go he.
Because the verse 7 is the conclusion. For God did not call us to be impure, but to live a holy life.
Aji chu pathinen adei chu I ho hi athing lo dinga ai ko bo ai de yo ai po in thin de hin ko a hing dinga ai de yo hi.
If you come to Nepal,
Nepal la hongo Nepal la chiu la chun
even if you go to Bihar or UP,
Bihar ham UP hama jong la chiu la chun
even in the villages, if a beautiful girl is walking alone,
ako sung dum ba khon no mai hai ta lampi azot na hele
there will be men staring at her.
posal ho en ama chu ve vintin be so vintin.
They will try to whistle and do everything possible to disturb this lady.
Chi no mai no chu azo chanowen fla no vintin ai lawa hele to no vintin chi khat chu ma he.
Not just Nepal, Bihar, anywhere in India you go, a young lady, the moment men see, they are moved with evil intentions.
Nepal ki wa ko India hele huila hele no mai khat posal ho amwa hele lung thim hai lo ba amet be agel pe yo ki he.
Because our society is sexually immoral right from the beginning.
Aji chu society hi abula ke patna hu le zon ta jaw tha a lungput nei ho na society.
And Paul comes along and says, no, you cannot live like the heathens who are fallen in their sexuality.
Aji aso Paul hichi chu hilo dinga hi hichi lungput na chu na hin thai lo dinga hi ya ana sai.
You need to respect one another, honor one another.
Khat la khat ki jading khat la khat ki ngai lut dinga hi.
And protect the weaker brother or sister in the society.
Society no mai he han lang posal he yong la ki ven bit dinga hi ki ven bit to dinga hi.
If you do that,
Hichi chu ibolo wa hele
you are pleasing God.
pathin hicha chu na su lung hai dinga.
Secondly, he goes on to say, if you want to please God, you need to love one another.
Je chun pa Paul na ba na sai kinen pathin na su lung hai na dinga chu khat la khat na ki ngai lu no ngai hi atikin nei.
From the beginning of this book, Paul says, you are loving one another.
Paul hichi lekha pu abula ke patna asai khat chu khat la khat ki ngai lu vin ti he hi.
You are believing in the Lord Jesus Christ.
Jesu Christa taksan ihiwa ahile.
And he says, you are having hope in the Lord Jesus Christ too.
Jesu Christa akinep na nei chu ihiwa hele.
In other words, Thessalonians were believing, loving, and hoping.
Alang akha asay ding Thessalonian mi te ho chu lungsit na ngailut na taksan na akikawa ahitain.
And God himself had taught them to do that.
Ya chu patin ama ta enjong hetabang henku aman dingo chu adeya ahil cha chu ahin.
In verse 9 it says, we don't have to write to you about this.
Ya chu verse 9 na say ki ho en lekha hen say na dinga hen ka hen thot jong
Because God
ngai khal poi tin ka gelin
has taught you.
patinin nahil sao thilahin.
And verse 10, in fact you do love all God's family throughout Macedonia.
So Macedonia gam kay jau sia jong he in so na pathin ngai le che na hi ve.
So Thessalonians were not only loving in their local church,
So Thessalonian ho hi amo ho bung sum ka abo wa he ki ngai lo he po in
the whole province of Macedonia, they were known.
agam kay sung jing wa yong chu ki ngai lo na de mo he.
Then he said, we urge you, brothers and sisters, to do it more and more.
He ja chu hi chan na chu thil pha na bo lo hi jong le. He sang a hai jo le pha jo che gil che sang si an na bo ding o chu ka taw na wa hi ti ne.
Do you love each other here?
He sun na ho jong tu nia he khat la khat na ki ngai lo no nam so te te ho.
Can you look at each other and say, I love you in the Lord Jesus Christ?
Để cho Giêsu Christa mình khat la khat na ki ba no ba.
Sister, do you love each other?
Negative thai di wa.
Or do you hate each other?
Please say each other, I love you so much.
Can you say?
Ita thre ko ji hi bam hitiu lo ya thai da ham khat la khat ki be bil long.
I cannot see Sister Melody here.
Look each other and say something. Say you care.
Do you care for one another?
Come on, don't, please do it.
Sister Lucy, do you know the sister sitting beside you? Do you know her name? Okay, there you go. How can you love each other when we don't know each other's name?
Both of you have been attending the church for the last many weeks now, and you don't know their name, for example.
Let us take time to know each other.
Khat la khat min ki het to zong chu khat kiel bol na ki kho sa to na poi mo so.
And practice loving one another.
Khat la khat ki ngai lut na he kizil nga ya he.
Because when we do that,
Aji zui ta ji bol ting le
we are imitating Christ himself.
chu ting le Krista chon chan le chan chu.
And we please God in doing so. Not only do we love in Hope Church here in Maikuli,
Hope Church Maikuli abawahi ki ngai lu no ahi po in
our love has to spread across wherever we know other believers.
Ngai lu now he mon tin jong a ho pang ai he.
So if you love a brother or a sister,
ya chu sopi nu ham chu lung si dai ngai lu no hele,
you will not exploit that person, you will not harm that person, but you will like to serve that person. When you see a loving wife and husband, how do you feel? Get angry? He only has a husband, he only has a wife.
Ama bo set jine ama ni bo set jine ham ama bo set jine ham jipa nai ham ti ho lung thim phalo na gyal jim.
If you see a loving father and son, how do you feel?
Apa la cha ke ngai lu ta jong au men he chong ta mo no mu te ngo le bi na gyal ji ba.
We see brother Boypu takes care of his mother so well. How do you feel when you see them?
So pe pa Boypu in nu ai ta ke la la ho bang he no mu wai pi na gyal ji ben.
Whenever we see a loving friendship, loving marriage, loving family, something beautiful happens.
ki ngai lu na ki ti hi jinei ho a he han lang loi le go la he han lang ipia hi yong le namu teng le ipti ne gel ba
Something within you feels like appreciating it.
na lung thima hi na pa cha na ki pa pi
In
ji
the,
ding ta sanomena he
in the same way, when God looks at us and we love each other, He is pleased.
hitabang mama a chu pathin in jong ki ho khat la khat ki ngai lu na ki lung sin na ki hom tho na ki ko sa to na amu teng le lung he ya hi
Number 3, we please God by minding our own business.
so le pathin su lung he na dang khat ki chu mi donga ikin na lawa ki kum lo ding ikin phata ki boi pi ding kang khen cha ding he
Sometimes when we say I love someone, then we mind their business too much.
aka akom le mi khat ka ngai lui ti le a hen ko ki sanai ki kumo ki kum lo na ding nga chuma ki kumo
But there is a boundary also.
a boundary ki le chu mi chu ki mo ki ngai lui ki ti wa nga chu chan ge ya ngai lu dham ti ko mai
Okay, let us read verse 11 and 12. And to make it your ambition to lead a quiet life, peaceful life.
Jadi asu kang khena hin kho no ta man thai na ding a chu
And to do that, you have to mind your own business.
ya chu ina to ibui na ai ma ki sa boi na chu phata a ki kol cha ding a he
And work with your own hand. That means mind your own business, work hard.
na to ding ikina chu ki sa boi ding adang mi kina ki sa boi lo ding ti na ta ba
So that your daily life will win the respect of outsiders.
hitia chu yum te ngau le in tin hin khu chu mi te za in hung men tin
And you will not depend on anyone else.
so le mi dang khut na ki ngai ta lo ding a hi
Sometimes we become too much busybody in minding others' business.
as aka kom le mi dang chunga eki kumawa i boi be se busy lo is mi kinai busy ji ku komo a men
We ask too many questions to some people who don't want to answer.
ani nga kai ko lo bin thu tam tai dong ji bin mo sei tho thai yong hello ya chu mi ding a tha si ko mai
For example, they say, how many children you have to me?
ba sa na en sai ya na yam tin ke i dong ji bin
I say, I have only one son.
yong cha cha pa khat to kan ye ka tin
And then they say, how old is he?
ana kum ja na tam na cha pa chu
And then I say, he's already married over 30.
ma je kum so tum ho ta ba ta en
And then they, where is he?
ale ho ya ham
Then I told him he's there and there.
ma chơi lai ao men
And then they, what is he doing
ani
there?
bia bol ham
And he's doing this and.
ai chi bol ka ti
And how much is he earning?
ani izat mo lo ham
It goes on and on.
ta chu ki nga thei lo wa ke ho ke chu mi khat chung chang chu ki ti do pa chu
Especially some of you are single, not married here.
adit se na jinai nai lo single chila no ho
Same thing, how old are you?
kum ya ni utam
Oh, you haven't married until now. Why?
tu chan nai tu chan na jinai nai lo i se ham na jinai lo na
Minding others' business sometimes breaks relationship.
ya so he tabang chan he lo wa mi su boy meaning mi ka lo ke ti hin khat la khat ki ngai lu na asu tan the
We have to know, understand, okay, maybe this person doesn't want to answer this question, so I better stop.
ya chu si no je pa hen ka thu do he lung lut be se hen ti ho yong het do anga the hi
And then mind our own business.
his pa la chun ei ma chung chang ei ma ei le ei ikin ki boi pi ding hi
Especially in the Thessalonians context,
ade se ra Thessalonian te to sai ma na
they had a high expectation of Jesus' immediate return.
am ho zo hen Jesu Christa hi kam ta wana ko na hong ding he anga la lo he
And they thought that it is useless to work hard and make money.
ja chu na ha ta to a sum lo ding ya ka pi akan po Jesu Christam hong wa ta ding ti ba wa ge lo he
And they, whoever has houses and land, and they were selling and bringing to the church.
in nei ho mi ho in ai na ne go ho zo wa ho vi na cha sum chan choi lo wa
And then they started, why work? Why to work? Let's bring whatever money you have, bring to the church. We will eat together.
ya chu ipi a iman diu hom tu a na sum ne jo si hin choi vin lang ho vi na enjoy vin lang bo thai man thai then mang ta ti cho mo che pi dan he
But then Jesus didn't return,
ala jesu krista agin chat pang vin hong kile ta pon
and they kept on becoming burden on other believers who had some money.
ye chun ata san sum nei phar khat ha ding a chu til ha sa hong pan tai
When the other believers do not want to sell their houses and land,
tu in ata san da ho in ai na ne go an zo nom lo pha no vin
they started to criticize, oh, he's not spiritual, she is not spiritual.
ye pa chun ama nu ha ma pa he ai mun zo zo nom poi sum non choi nom poi phat thagau ni ai poi ti ho dem na an nei pan ta vin
It was in this context Paul says, no, you must mind your own business.
he chi lai ta zo polin to a chi a sai he
You-
nang ma ki boi pin mi dang boi pi in ati he
And you must go and work hard.
na to ha bolin nang ma na to ki boi pi
Make your own money, earn your own food.
nang ading en sum ki lom na ne ding nang ma ki lom
And if you do that, others will respect you.
Jesus na bola le mi dang en zo nang ma na hen za
And you will not be a burden to others.
su ting le sun mi dang ading bui na
So
ani
when,
ta lo ding ai
so when we want to please God,
ya su pathin hi sulung thai ta nge iti tingo le
live sexually pure life.
hu le zon hen hu pa he da la ngai hi
If you are single, pray that God will bring you a right partner.
zinai nai lo nei le pathin he nga ta wen pathin na jiding phata na hen bol ti ding hi
If you are married, remain faithful and loving to one another.
amma wang zinai nahi ta hele najinu naji pa dengan kita tanu men
And secondly, then be a loving person in the community, in the family.
so le community society ading so le insunga dengan ta sanung ta le ginong ta en hingin
Be a caring person.
ni kho sa na din mi hin
When you do that,
so na bolte na bola hele
you will win others' respect.
midang ho ngai lu na zana na chan ding ai
You will even win God's respect.
pathin ja na jing yong na chan ding ai
Let us conclude with these three things here one more time. When we live a life pleasing to God,
pathin lung thai sa na hin ko iman tingo le
our own life becomes pleasant and worth living.
ai mo hin ko jing yong chu hung man lu a lung thai na dim ji hi
Holiness in marriage brings great joy and blessings.
jinai hin ko a thin ne hi ki pa na le phat thai bo na hin kai lu nin
But if we fail in marriage,
ai la jinai akile la nga jinai lo thing lo chu
if we compromise our sexuality in one way or other,
he chu ku le zon chung thua hi khat la khat ai lo wa au ma hele
the consequences are very bad.
he chi aga chu thil pha thil vai hi lo be hi
And then loving one another makes us pleasant human beings.
khat la khat ti ngai lu na hi mi hem hi na a lung hlei up ta mi hem hi na chu aso hi
Minding our own business and working hard brings confidence and respect from others.
ai ma ito a ki sa boy so le na ha to he chu ho hen mi da nga kun ja na le ai jong ki til kho na ki ama sa sang ki sun zo na api na hi
So let us close our eyes for a moment and think about,
imino cham hat la sino tin ki ngai to te
are we living to please God?
pathin sulung lung hol de nga yu mo ham